I want to talk to you about my friend Charlie Crawford. He's a 10-time NFR qualifier.
Charlie Crawford, time to just shake it out and win. Got it on him fast, set
there
up.
We are.
Here's a day
nice
money
run.
lead. You betcha 3-8.
That's an absolute perfect run. Timing was perfect from the time the first swing is up. He's got the control. Charlie made it happen by being timed up with his horse with the steer, and being able to not just rope, but to pick that steer's head up without changing the momentum for the heeler at all.
We know his beautiful wife, Jackie, all three of their beautiful children, the founder of the Liberty and Loyalty Foundation, which this year will exceed $1 million raised for military and first responders. I've said it 1,000 times. Charlie, it's time to rope, nod and ride, whip and spur. I want to welcome you to the Charlie Crawford Podcast. Let's ride.
Ropers, are you ready to step up your game? My online course, The Basics of Roping, is built for beginners, but packed with tools to help ropers of all levels sharpen their skills. With over 2 hours of instruction, frame-by-frame swing breakdowns, when to turn your hand over to keep your loop open, when and where to let go of your rope so you can get the horns in the middle of that loop, over 15 dummy drills to simulate real-life runs, you'll have everything you need to improve. Go to charlycrawford.training and follow the link under the course tab to get started today.
Hello, everyone. Today we have Larry Rice on the podcast. Larry Rice has a horse operation and really known for his cattle operation as well. But for the horse industry and the roping industry, the Flag Ranch has been the brands you've seen on the horse's hips that have been making a heck of a splash in the roping industry. And Larry, we're here at your place here in Torrington, and thanks for being on the podcast, sir. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Like to start off first with the horses you were riding over the last couple of days. I really like those three horses. First off, what are they bred like, and how old are they?
The sorrel gelding is he's the only horse that I have that's straight cow-bred. He's out of a stallion that we own called Bobby Starlight, a Gray Starlight son. He'd won about 150,000 in the Rain Cow Horse events, and then he's 9 years old. The bay gelding is a Fury of the Wind son out of a Sixes Pick daughter. He'd be I think he's 10 years old. And then the young horse, the brown gelding I have is
Was that the bay that you rode at the end?
Yes.
That one, that one's got some foot speed.
Yeah.
That one's very, very attractive when you first watch him go.
Yeah. He's as good a horse as I've ever owned. His mind is just phenomenal. I mean,
the sorrel looked really easy. He looked real easy to rope on. The other one had the foot speed where he had that appeal to him. He looked really saucy.
And the sorrel horse we call him, his name is Precious now. That's Bobby's horse.
Okay.
So anyway, he is easy. I mean, he doesn't, but when you get used to riding the horses that have a little of the running blood in it, it feels like it's in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he just doesn't have he's a very nice horse. The young horse, the brown gelding that I rode there early on and rode when we were, roping the machine, one thing and another, is out of a stallion that Rick Monterra and I owned. His name's One Fabulous Time. He's a son of One Time Pepto. We did the Rain Cow Horse on him, and then he's out of a straight race bred Fury of the Wind mare. So
now is the one you talked about, the bay horse, is that related to Joseph's? Is it the One Fabulous Time? I can't remember if Joseph Harrison said his horse, Air Force One, maybe was.
He's out of One Fabulous Time.
Yeah. They have that. They just had a real appeal to him on that head side. Because what I was able to see, and I don't know, I'd love to hear what your feel is when you talk about this, but when you have one that has that much foot speed, does it feel like it changes your swing? Because what I've felt is when they have that foot speed, you have so much more on your rope. It feels like it keeps you more aggressive because you're swinging in stride and then feet are moving. And for me, those are things that I've always loved the feel of because it keeps you aggressive and keeps your rope going.
Well, I think that One Fabulous Time himself was he was so atypical from the way he was bred. I mean, he's a one-time Pepto out of a really good highbrow cat mare called Cat Smith that has a phenomenal producer. And he was big. I mean, he'll stand close to 15 hands tall. And I mean, it's just the most impressive horse you ever saw. We bought him as a 2-year-old out of the in cutting horse in training sale in Fort Worth out of Western Bloodstock. And it was kind of amazing when we had him and One Time Honor, who is a one-time Pepto son that's out of a straight race bred mare, both in training with Todd Crawford. And Todd told me that, well, he said the One Time Honor he just didn't have the foot speed to really compete at the top level of the rein cow horse. Hell, he had his foot speed was as good as anything I'd ever ridden. So one day we switched horses. I rode One Time Honor first, and he just flowed across the ground. And I mean, wouldn't be far to the back of the pasture. I mean, a good moving, really, really talented and adequate foot speed, I thought. And then we switched, and I got on One Fabulous Time. Well, that ability to go across the arena, I mean, he was rough riding. I mean, it was straighter shouldered, cutting type horse that didn't have the extension to really cover the ground. But when he would turn, when he would move, it was just effortless. He could just turn inside himself. It was then all of a sudden it was, oh, I see what you mean. And that horse has worked really well when you cross him back on with some running blood and extend that stride. I mean, they've really done well. There's another one that we raised that would be a full sister to the brown gelding I was riding yesterday that we sold it to Caleb Driggers, and she had a year less training than most of those 4-year-olds a year ago. Caleb ended up winning second at the big futurity in Fort Worth off of her. I mean, that seems to be a really good cross, that horse. I mean, the one-time Peptos is, to me, that the sons and daughters are plenty hot, have probably too big a motor. It's amazing how when you dilute that a little bit, how many of these one-time Pepto sons are fantastic rope horse sires. That seems to be work. I mean, Shining Sparks the same way. That the sons and daughters are plenty tough to handle. They're phenomenal producers. I mean, the Playgun, that's another cow-bred stallion that we really love the daughters out of. I've had great success with them. There's a gray mare that's one Smart Pistola now that Clay Smith and Richie's own, that Ren Richard originally campaigned out of a Playgun mare. I mean, that's what we find with one-time Pepto is that when you dilute it a little bit, the sons and daughters are phenomenal producers for what we want to do, what the kind of horse we need.
Well, and you can see it because the top trainers there's so many of them that have your guys' horses, that have the flag ranch on their hip, between Trevor and Miles. You could name off them for me so I don't have to guess, but I know Billy Jack had a lot of positive things to say, about him as well. But a lot of the top trainers and some of the guys going down the road that have that horse, the brand on that horse.
We started out, actually, when we got started in doing this, Jet Johnson was one of the first guys the A team that rode any of our horses, and that horse, the first one that he had, he ended up, eventually we sold him to Paul Eves, and now that's the horse that Hunter Cook is actually rodeoing on. And we didn't raise that horse; we bought him as a yearling. But I mean, Ren Richard
really liked that horse. Yeah,
Ren Richard is one of the first people that I met. Ren in Arizona, of course. And Ren's family, they have phenomenal racehorses. I mean, they have they've got 2 All-American winners. And I was practicing at a mutual friend's house, and Ren was like my horses. I like Ren's horses, and he stopped by in Oklahoma. Then that next year, that was the year of the COVID, and when they moved the Feist to Oklahoma, and he was there for that. Said, "Can I come over and look around in the morning?" And it was the day after the Feist. I said, "Sure, absolutely, we'd love to have you come." Well, he ended up spending the week, and when he left, he bought 6 horses, and so Ren's just, has been phenomenal for our ranch, the things that he's done with our horses. I mean, that Chick's Magic Corona that he won the futurity with there in 22, And then that's actually how Trevor and Miles, they were riding reiners, and they came over to Ren's in Arizona one year and rode the horses. Ren called me and said, Trevor was here, and he tried several of the horses that I bought from you, and I think they'll be calling. And they did, and they wanted to buy 2-year-old fillies. That's when we actually sold them the horse they renamed to Relentless PYC. That's how that came about. I mean, and it just is grown. I mean, now, Caleb's showing them.
Is that Nala?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That mare made one heck of a splash last year. That was a beautiful mare, such a sweet, kind-looking horse. But man, as a 4-year-old, she stood out big time.
Well, those guys, it's the king of the cowboys, but his partner Miles is unbelievable with those young horses. I mean, it's just those 2 fillies were literally just 2 years old when they got them, and what they were able to do with them in 2 years and have them at that level, and it can keep them at that level. They do a phenomenal job. I mean, Caleb Driggers has started riding some of them. Billy Jack has started riding some of them, and is unbelievable.
Billy Jack's training has really impressed me, especially on the head side. Yeah. That's what Joseph said the other day. Like, he could have been a header, but I've watched his horses, and just the way they score, they run up and lock on good and stay square to the steer. But such a good, solid, smooth move, and it looks to me too like they understand their job. It's just, Billy Jackson's kind of one of them guys. He's spent more time rodeoing and kind of getting in the fraternities and hadn't just been full on. But when he shows up, the horses just look so easy, and he does such a good job. I think when he decides rodeoing's not going to be probably full time, I'll bet his training does a good job, because those horses under him look good, and they go to the top level too. That's what I really like seeing as well.
No, there's no doubt that the secret to our success is being blessed with that caliber of people riding our horses. I mean, that's those guys are, and we've got Colby Lovell is another one that's done.
How handy is that guy? He's
just superhuman. I mean, that guy.
He is superhuman. No matter what he's doing, I'd love to see him just go pig hunting. I bet he's probably better at pig hunting than probably anybody else out there, because if he wants to heel, he's as good as anybody. If he wants to head, he's as good as anybody. And then he shows up and says, man, I might dabble with this horse training thing a little bit and kick everyone's ass, and then go pig hunt again.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah. He was trying to sell me a horse, a stallion. He's got 2 3-year-old stallions. They're just phenomenal. Nice. I mean, and of course he's got them going so good. I mean, and he wanted to sell me half of one of them, or wanted to sell me all of one of them. And I told him, I said, I've never seen the horse, but if you'll show him, I'll buy half of him. Well, I don't want to go. And that's now Colby just doesn't want to leave the house. But I mean, he is, if he wanted to, there's just no telling, especially with the stallions. That's how we met him. We had a stallion that we raised that was a one-time Pepto out of he was straight cut and bred. We'd done the Rain Cow horse. He'd won $60,000. Matt Cook had done a wonderful job riding him there and training him. And he was a 5-year-old, and Sean Madden and I were partners on him, and I said, it's time to rope on him. And so Sean was tired of paying trading bills. So anyway, we ended up buying him out, and we were able to talk Colby into taking that horse. And I mean, in 3 or 4 months, he takes him to the Riata Buckle and qualifies heading and heeling on him in 3 or 4 months. At that level, he's, but the stallions, gosh, I mean, the Raise a Pep, all the things he did with that horse, and how that horse has continued for Jake Cooper. And I mean, that's, Colby's is another one that's just super, super talented. But that really has been, we're so blessed to have that caliber of people riding your horses. I mean, it as tough as this roping for surety has gotten, to compete, it almost takes that caliber person.
Well, and it also takes the horse. You got to have the ability underneath. And one thing that Rick Montera and Miles Baker, when I was texting them, both said too was, your ability to where you were kind of ahead of a curve before a lot of this stuff even started. what kind of what was the purpose you feel like for kind of dabbling with it before everyone else between the cow-bred and the racehorse breeding?
You know, I grew up team roping and roped a lot through my 20s and early 30s, and then we got started running some horses at the racetrack, and our business was growing by leaps and bounds. I didn't have time for one hobby, let alone two, and so we. I quit team roping for about 20 years, and we got into the running the quarter horses, and as running, I always, out of the corner of my eye, tried to watch for the running bred horses that had the minds that you thought you could go ride. I mean, I really, that was something we studied for years.
So when you studied it, how did you study it? What were you looking for?
Oh, I mean, it's just intelligence. I mean, we all talk about how cowy they are. I don't think it's really cowiness. It's just intelligence. And that's watching the horses that we raced at the racetrack, the ones that were honest and would load in the gates and were consistent and watching. I'm convinced that horse is also consistent in the when you back him in the box. And
that makes sense.
Rick Montera has a horse that we bought off the racetrack and actually went ahead and sent him to a barrel trainer for a bit. That was the only way we could get him bought. And Alana James started him and rode him for a couple of years, and then we went and started roping on him. And I mean, and that horse, I mean, he won 30,000 at the racetrack, was, won his Rainbow Futurity trial. I mean, he was competitive. At the racetrack couldn't run 400 yards, but which is perfect. But his mind would be as good as any cutting bred horses you ever rode. I mean, I brought the horse up here, ride him into an alley full of 1,000-pound steers to ship on him. I mean, he's just amazing. And that's the horse that the Relentless PYC that Miles and Trevor have had so much success with. Nala, I think they call her. That's who she's by. And I mean, so when you stumble into that particular horses, and some of the pedigrees, I mean, he's out of Paint Your Wagon, who's a Corona Cartel son. A lot of the Corona Cartel sons have worked well for us. Fury of the Wind would be my favorite race-bred broodmare sire to try and raise a rope horse. We've had wonderful success with those horses. The bay horse that you like so well, he's actually a son of Fury of the Wind. So that's, we'd been working on that for years. And then I decided how it started was I decided to go ahead and start roping again. And I had a wonderful friend and customer by the name of Woody Bartlett. And the only way I had to give back to all the business that we did was to buy a horse at his sale. He was involved in Bill Smith's sale at Thermopolis. One year, all he had was that I liked was a Smarty Lena son. He's 14-1, and my goodness, I'd never ridden a Shetland pony before. My horses had always been bigger type horses. Most of my horses always had a little running blood in them. So I bought him one year. That was just because I needed to. I got him home and thought, well, I just ride my Shetland pony. Well, he's amazing. He's 24 years old, and my sister still rides him. But he just wasn't big enough to take the jerk. And that was in 2008 or 7 or 8 when the horse market went in the tank, and we had actually we dispersed our running bred mares. It got to where it was we had them up here at the ranches in Wyoming. It just got tired of hauling horses. And so we sold in. The horse market was wonderful in 2005. And then I just got to thinking, if I could take this mind and this horse and make him a hand bigger and give him a notch more speed, what a cool horse this would be. And I was getting, like I said, I wanted to start roping again. Didn't have anything to ride. Horse market was really in the tank. Nobody wanted a broodmare. Nobody wanted the fillies. And so we just kind of bailed off into it. And what I had, the real learning curve I had was the cut and bred horses, the cow-bred horses. I didn't have any experience with those. And we actually went ahead and got involved. I had an Australian by the name of Dale Bennett that did a wonderful job for us. And he liked the cutters. And so when
you're talking about the horse market being down and no one wanted the brood mares, was that kind of the time where you seen an opportunity where there was
it looked
an
like
opportunity to be able to buy some because of no one wanted them.
that was it. And of course, then who are you going to sell them to? I mean, Rick and Jimmy Joe Montero were some of the first people that rode our horses. Rick and I are old friends, and I actually told my ex-wife that, this looks like a real challenge and it kind of would be fun, but and it shouldn't lose that much money because we're not giving anything for them. And we ran them up here. We ran them up here. It's a horse deal. It's going to lose money. It's going to lose money, but it was up here. We literally ran them up here on our ranches in Wyoming behind cattle, and we foaled in May and June. And despite what my wife Bobby thinks, a mare can have a colt out in the pasture, and it's all by herself. They don't have to be in the barn. But anyway, they did. They foaled out in the pasture. We had 3 stallions, Bobby Starlight, then the Divers race bred stallion, and then One Time Honor, who's half and half. And then we would split these mares up. The majority of the mares we ended up with up here at the ranch were cutting bred. The race mares didn't do well up here. I mean, their metabolism is so much different that on this pasture.
Is it the feed or the weather?
It's just their metabolism. They take so much more feed and some more calories for the race bred horses to maintain. That the cow-bred cutting bred mares would be big and fat, and 90% of the time would have a foal breed back and have a foal the next year. The race bred mares that we brought up off the racetrack would have a foal every other year and then just didn't do well. I mean, they wouldn't breed back. They were thin. So anyway, that's as we got into it, that's basically how it started out. And we didn't plan on putting anything into them. We ran them like horses. We'd feed them a little in the winter. We didn't touch those babies till we weaned them. And just ran them up here. And then as time went along and we bought our property in Oklahoma and eventually went ahead and dispersed the set of mares that we had up here. And that's where like Char's gone, the mother of Nala, those mares, that's where they were at.
So that's where you moved your horse operation to, is Purcell?
Yes,
Oklahoma.
Purcell. Mm-hmm. And so there is nothing cheap about running a horse in Oklahoma. They eat. Basically, we have some wonderful pasture there, but most of what they eat is you feed them and there's care. I mean, it's not a low cost deal to raise one down there, but what it started out up here, it was absolutely a low cost. We're not going to have a lot of money in these horses because we're not going to get anything for them. And it worked into it as we would ride them, sell them as coming 3-year-olds, and as time went along, these people riding them said, "Hey, we'd like to get our hands on them quicker. How could we do that?" And one thing led to another. And so I guess it'll be 3 years ago, we decided to start selling them as 2-year-olds, coming 2s that we hadn't started. And that's really simplified life. I mean, that's worked really well for us. And we have that sale at the Triangle Sale, and Jeremy and his crew have just been phenomenal, have done everything we've asked them to do. And it's really worked out well.
Now, how did you come up with the Flag Ranch brand?
We had a purebred Angus operation for many years, and it was at one of our ranches we called Snake Creek, which is northeast of Scottsbluff, and we sold that ranch, and it was an old ranch that obviously the name needed to stay with it, and there was already two rice Angus ranches, one in Montana, one in Kansas. And so I was looking for a name in the cattle business. In the registered business, the ranch puts a prefix, whether it's an abbreviation or a small name, something like Flag. I saw this Flag brand, which everybody calls a square P. But anyway, it was for sale in a publication in Montana, a Nebraska brand. I saw the brand and it just hit me. That would be a way to go ahead and come up with a name for our Angus program. And so that's how that worked out.
So I'm sure you've been following the futurities, the rope horse futurities and things like that. And as a breeder, where do you feel like maybe the futurities could either improve? Where does it feel like, where the horses are at, or where they can improve on? What is it that you're liking about it, and what do you feel like it could improve? Because I feel like right now that it's hitting such a big splash and they're getting so much notoriety over it. There's going to be ways that there's always going to be when it grows. There's going to be learning curves. There's going to be evolving. Just like in my opinion, I think that in the futurities, I feel like for trainers or the riders, just the riders, they're going to have to figure out a different way to probably start ranking them. What would be considered an open, what would be considered, the limited and non-pro, and, how they categorize everybody. Because like right now, and it was a great starting period because everyone was kind of qualified with what their USTRC numbers or World Series number is, Global or whatever they call it. And now it's not really going to be about the number. It's going to be about how good you can ride. I think, eventually it might be starting to go off of probably money won, what would be considered an open caliber, and then bracket it down from there, because the ability with your right hand is really not what shows a lot of times in the futurities. It's going to be for one, the horse, obviously, but then how good of a jockey you are. And so it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves, I feel like, for the riders. But as the trainer, but as like somebody that's in here that's breeding them, where do you feel like it's going, and where do you feel like that evolution might be coming after?
Well, I was we were involved in the rein cow horse deal, and when I was actually on the sale committee when the first year that we included the first team rope and futurity with at the same time as a snaffle bit. And so, the Jay started that. I mean, he was the brains behind that, has done a phenomenal job getting it off the ground. And I was there because I was at the snaffle bit futurity anyway, to watch and we were raising team roping horses at that. We had been raising team roping horses for 10 years by that time, probably. And was able to watch that, and that, JD won the head in that year. And the way that's progressed from that year and the caliber of those horses to this year, watching the futurity in Utah that Richard's and his those people have put together, it's just nothing short of unbelievable, the improvement and how deep that group of horses is, and
the horse flesh.
Yeah,
I mean, totally agree. I thought when it kind of first started, they almost looked too cow-bred. Thinner boned, 14-3 kind of head horses. Now they look like head horses. They're big bones, deep chest, deep as they cinch. They look like they could go down the road. I totally agree with that too.
Well, I think that Trevor, I've heard him say this several times, and he's absolutely correct. And that for the first time in history, we're not using the horses that washed out of the cutters or the rein cow. We're breeding one specifically to go do this job. And then so, it's just unbelievable the amount of improvement in just a few years. They're just not the same horse. I mean, there's no comparison. And they, and I certainly think, at least on the head and horse side, that incorporating some running blood in there and is the key, absolutely the key to raising the horses that are the caliber these horses are. I mean, and I think it's so cool that we're starting to finally see them get to have enough age to where they're starting to go on across into the rodeo events. I mean, that's one of the things that the first horse that Wren had that he won the futurity 600 futurity in 2022, I guess, was a Fury of the Wind horse that I thought was absolutely what we were trying to breed. I mean, this horse has the size, and he was one that I'd kept for myself. This is the horse I finally had to swallow some pride and realize I couldn't ride one side of that son of a gun. I mean, he was all in. Now I way more horse than I could ride, and so then then who do I get him to that can promote him? And Wren was obviously a wonderful pick, and I never thought he would use him in the futurities. He was a 5-year-old when I sold him to him. I thought I'll see that horse at the NFR in 2 or 3 years. That was my goal. I mean, we weren't trying to raise one to go to the futurities. That's what, and I mean, for me, we've got, there's 5 4-year-olds that are being shown now. And I mean, of ours, and I really think that 4 of the 5 have won futurities now already, but there's 3 of those horses that I really think that in 2 or 3 years that we'll be able to see the A team riding them at the rodeos and maybe the NFR. And I mean, there's back to Ren again, and Richards did so much for our program, but there was Carter's One Time is a filly that the mare that Ren won the Royal Crown in Rock Springs on. Now he sold her to Colton Schmidt. Now he's riding her at the rodeos. I mean, that's the exciting thing. I mean, that we're getting to that point now. They're getting enough age to where we see these futurity horses going on and doing that. And then you've got, this is one of the things that I've heard other people say, that it makes so much sense as far as the longevity of this business is that we've got from me going to a number 9 over 60 team roping in Wickenburg, the horse that I need to ride, to the horse that Colton Schmidt or those kind of that caliber or Ren are riding at the top level of the rodeos. A week ago we went and watched the Slack in Cheyenne for the team roping, and there was 5 horses with our brand on them at the Slack in Cheyenne. One of the toughest.
Well, that's
most
where
demanding.
the head horse is going to shine.
Yeah.
That's, this is the time of year where you start seeing now from Reno till Cheyenne, Salinas. This is where you see the head horses really stick out.
So that was really
that's
rewarding.
Cool to see that many of your brands at that rodeo.
Oh, we were just thrilled to death. I mean, that was the goal. That was always the goal. But I mean, that is really cool. As far as in the team rope and futurity deal is these horses have have such a large, diverse people wanting to ride them after the futurities, from the guys that are, the NFR guys down to guys like me that are going to the lower numbered jackpots. And so there's a place for all of these horses when we get done. They have some value, and there's no doubt it's like anything where the expense we have in these horses when you get done, well, they're not cheap. I mean, whether neither one of them are going to be cheap, but we've got a lot of money invested in them. But with the horse market the way it is, it's probably a good return. I mean, it's the other thing is there's getting more and more people that aren't team ropers, that are just breeders, and that's the thing that in any of the other older events that have been around longer, the breeder is really, really identified, and they certainly give them a shout out, whether it's racing, cutting, reining. You don't see any results for any of the major type those events that don't have the breeder involved. I mean, they're trying to keep those people continuing to do that, and that's where and maybe it's a self-serving, I guess. Just because where we are the breeder, we like to see our name. We'd like to get some promotion for that. That's I hope coming more. It's been slow to coming in the team rope and futurity world, but I think more and more people are aware of it, and there's more and more people that are just breeding these horses to sell for Joe Blow to go rope on. They don't rope. They're not involved in our industry. They're not weekend team ropers. They're totally doing it to do that, like the horse that sold in Utah through the auction that brought $1.7 million. That guy has nothing to do with team roping. He bought that mare to go ahead and campaign, and they'll go ahead and start his own broodmare band. Well, that person down the road is going to have to be recognized if you want him to continue to do that.
Mm. Yeah, that's very interesting. I can't say how much I enjoy seeing the horses because you said it. I mean, this listening to the conversation is something that I've watched just evolve for so long, but it's been something that we've talked about forever. You're exactly right, because when we would be looking for head horses, they were either a blowed up racehorse, they were a blowed up barrel horse, they were a horse that didn't make it maybe got too big in the reining, or the cow horse, whatever it was always a reject. And I've heard Joseph even talk about it too. He's talking about, now that we're specifically breeding, because he said, man, why would I want to think that I'm going to have a chance to win at the top level by buying something that wasn't good enough somewhere else? He said a lot of times if they're a reject, that might have been the reason why they were a reject. And now we're going to try to win at the top level when they're specifically breeding for these horses. And I don't mean all of them are rejects in the fact that maybe some of them might have got blowed up. Some of them didn't have the mind for it. Some of them, that were good, a lot of times just got too big for what they were disciplined for, which they were still good horses and they were still ready to go. But man, a lot of times when you blow one up, it's hard to get them back to do anything after that. And so I love the way you're talking about specifically looking for the intelligence in either the mare or the sire or the bloodlines or the breeding, where you're trying to see, okay, what does this horse have a stride for? What is this horse right here paying attention to? Where, when I was watching your horses, just the three of them, I mean, they were beautiful, big, strong animals that looked like head horses, from one being easy to one having foot speed to where you're like, wow, that one's almost a little too much for a slower kind of steer, where then the other one you had that would look like you could have just put your rope wherever you wanted it on that type of steer, but where the other one looked like, holy smokes, if that steer would run, wow, you're going to see some ability. And so those are just things like for me, just, always observing and watching. It's fun to see kind of, in my opinion, what the breeders are looking for. Being able to see what you're seeing, having your eyes to where when you're talking about breeding, crossing the racehorse to the cow-bred, because it's a little bit of a mad science, I feel like, to where, because I'm sure for you, there was probably quite a few different breedings you had to go through where you're like, that one probably didn't work. They'll found it. I would say that it wasn't just hit right off the bat, would you say?
Oh no, we went through a lot of mares. I mean, that when we started this program there in 2008 or 9, those mainly with the more of the cow-bred horses, the mares we started, we probably went through 50% of the mares didn't cut it. I mean, that after a couple colts, we didn't like the babies. I mean, it's way harder to raise the one that looks like those three geldings that I rode. That's the look that we like to have them have. It's way harder to find that and that mare that will raise that type of horse in the cow-bred pedigrees. I mean, you really have to find it. They're almost a freak. It's like the One Fabulous Time stallion. I mean, that horse, I don't know how many thousands of cutting horses you'd have to look through to find one that's made like that horse is made. And then it's way easier to find them in the racehorses. It's just then the mind deal comes in. I can find the phenotype that I like in the racehorses easier. It's finding the mind, and that's what as people are getting into this, the cross. Everybody that's worked well. There's a lot of people that seem to think that they just go buy a running bred mare and breed them to a cutting horse. Well, 80% of those running bred horses don't have a good enough mind. I mean, it's in the cutting horses, it's the freak that's big enough and got enough, look to them and has the, longer neck, bigger hip and what I found that worked best was the older pedigreed horses, the little peppy, the sons and daughters of the little peppy and the gray starlights. And that type of horse worked way better for me. They were, back then they weren't as specialized and they were bigger. There were more horses that you could go do a lot of other things with them. And that's the pedigrees that worked best for me when we started going ahead and crossing them back and forth. And back to the specialized horses that were just washouts, especially on the healing side, you're also starting to see horses that were very successful in the rein cow horse. I mean, the Pride and Joy horse that Solo and Trevor have. That that horse was very successful in the rein cow horse, and now look how successful he is there. I mean, that not as much in the heading side, but in the healing side of the one-time Pepto Stallion that Joseph's shown, that's just been unbelievable. I mean, that I think that horse was probably cow horsed on, I believe. Maybe they cut on him, but he was certainly no washout. I mean, that's there's some horses that have done, were very successful in the other events and then have gone on to be exceptional team roping horses too. But
because that's one of the things that I went through my career was because I like speed. I like when the horns come to me. When I see the start, I want the horns to come to me. I was always, my ability was I used my horse better than my rope. And then it got so fast. And after a while, when they're at the end of my career, and I see it a little bit now at certain places at certain times where a good horse will get in your way. And that's your indoor pins a lot of times. And so like now, this is where you see where the horses, to me, shine because you're able to use those horses because the speed's going to get you there because you can't use your rope because the starts are out there too long. But one of the things that I remembered going through kind of the racehorse side of it was, because Jackie had started a few of them, and then I would pick them up and go on from there. And she would do such a phenomenal job with starting them. They knew their job. They were totally confident with what they do. Then after that, it was feel. Where one might be so much natural when I would get up there and rope and pick up, that horse was just so built downhill that he couldn't get his shoulders back up and get collected so he could pull. So it wasn't the horse. It was just how God made him. It was his natural instincts. He scored good. He would run good. He did his job good. But the feel for me at the top level wasn't there because it would pull me down over the front and then I'd wave off a lot and I just never could, the feel wasn't there. Well, then I would get another one that could just roll. I'm telling you, when you got your swing up, the horns came too fast, like so fast that they couldn't collect enough because they were strung. Their strides were so long, they could just engulf the steer to you, but then couldn't match up to the steer. Well, then it made it hard to handle in the corner because they were just so long, just the way they were naturally built. And then the ones that I really enjoyed riding, there at the end of my career, I had a horse called Nasty, and then another one I bought that was bred just like him. I called him Dirty. And I believe he was lead the field and had a great mind. Both of them wanted to score. They were super good in the box, leave off your hand, but had such a quick stride that they could still engulf the steer. But then when they would get there, they could still collect right there where you could match the steer and really handle him. And I was like, man, that's what I was looking for the whole time. I needed the speed, but the stride had to be there. So there was so much to it to where it wasn't just all speed. There was certain little things that needed to be there because feel is the one thing you really can't teach. You can't really train the feel. It kind of has to be in the eye of what you're talking about a little bit of what you're looking to, what is going to match right there that's going to have foot speed enough to give the guy the feel. Because man, when they have that feel, oh my gosh, that's when your rope feels good. That's when the horns come to you good, and then they can just melt down and just put the steer wherever they want, and then fast-footed enough where they can finish. And that was what I had found in those two horses that I really liked on that. And that's what I'm really seeing in a lot of the horses that you're breeding is just that feel. It takes a little bit of mad science to kind of find out what works and what don't, for sure, it looks like.
This episode is brought to you by Corvive. Corvive has a great line of products that I believe in and use every day. Their product Hydrate isn't just for quenching your thirst. It's packed with vitamin C and zinc to give your immune system a little extra boost, especially in this Texas heat. I don't do a clinic, podcast, or a pre-workout without their product Energy. It keeps me locked in, it's convenient, effective, and it tastes great. Jackie and I drink it all the time. I drink it before I compete, and it's really good for those all-night drives. I don't have a post-workout without their protein. It's grass-fed, packed with collagen, peptides, amino acids, and has no chalky aftertaste. It's a great meal replacement or a way to rebuild after a hard workout. Core Renew covers all your gut health needs in just a single daily serving. New customers get 10% off their order by going to corvive.com/Crawford. See the podcast description for the link, or check the link in my bio on all my social media channels.
Oh, there's no doubt that anytime when you start crossing, they're like two different breeds. I mean, they're not. I mean, they're all quarter horses, but they are so far apart. When you have that much difference, whether you're breeding cattle or whether you're breeding horses, you're going to get a lot of variation. And I mean, I guess the way I look at it is a lot of times when you're breeding the cutting horse to the racehorse, you'll get 20 or 30% of them that come out smaller and look like the cutting horse did, and then you'll get 20 or 30% of them that look way too racy. I mean, we had a Bama Cat horse that Bama Cat is such a small, really cutting horse looking animal. I mean, he really doesn't fit the type horse we we like. Normally, I saw him. It was kind of peer pressure that we end up with a share in him. But I look back, it was when he was in the semifinals at the NCHA Futurity. I was sitting with Dr. Bartlett and Jim Ware and several other cutting horse type people, and that horse just make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. I mean, Dr. Bartlett had a box right there along the 50-yard line where it was so cool to watch, and that horse is just unbelievable. How and then they had just got done syndicating him, and these guys were teasing me that, well, if you'd have just got here a little quicker, you could have had a share of him. Well, Jim was, he wasn't our kind of horse. I mean, he's 14-1 and doesn't have a pretty hip. He's not a attractive horse, but, their minds are off the charts. And so anyway, Jim told me, he said, well, Larry, he said, if you want to share, he was the syndicate manager, I'll give you a share. Well, okay. Like I said, it's peer pressure. He wasn't the kind of horse I needed. I'd rather be lucky than smart. Well, we bred him because he was so small, we bred him to a couple Fury of the Wind mares that were big, really racy horses. Well, Bama Fury comes along, and my gosh, he looks like a racehorse. I mean, he's tall, he's racy, doesn't have the look that we like until we started to ride him. And then, holy smokes, what a nice horse. Well, he was a horse I could have got by him. His mind was good enough. We decided to keep him. Well, Trevor and Miles had bought those two fillies, and they came back a few months later and said, we'd like to look at your geldings. I had never shown anybody that horse. I mean, he was the one I was going to keep. And Trevor came up and said, Larry, how have you priced this horse? I said, Trevor, I've not only never priced him, I've never let anybody look at him before. But if you're interested, you'll do with so much more with him than I would that I'll sell him to you. Well, that horse went on to really work well, obviously for Trevor until he got hurt. And it was, but that's, from that particular horse, they don't have the look. The Bama Cats don't, but they're so trainable. The mare that Bama Fury was out of was super hot. I mean, we ended up selling her. We sold the mare before Bama Fury actually got to his 4-year-old year because she was so hot. I mean, she was almost a stall weaver. That horse is, and that's one of the things that we found is it's matching that type. That Bama Cat's mind took care of that other mare of her mind, it counterbalanced things. But what I'm seeing is we have this huge variation as when you're breeding that first cross, and you'll get that 30-40% in the middle. That's what we want. Mm-hmm. But then when you go to the next cross and you start breeding that, if you will, that second generation or that half blood to the half blood, all of a sudden that gets so much more predictable. And you start getting 10 or 20% that are too small and 10 or 20% that are too big and 60 or 80% in the middle that are what we're looking for. And they're so much more consistent. And that's where we're at finally now. And I mean, which is exciting to see. We've got a young Fury of the Wind mare that's that second generation, and her oldest colt we actually kept ourselves, and Cole Davison started her, and then we've sold her recently to some other folks that are going on to the futurities with her. But her second colt is the gray mare that Billy Jack's had great success with, the Uno Furiosa. I mean, her third colt is a one-time honor colt that Clay Smith and his father-in-law, the Richies, bought. That she'd be a 3-year-old this year. That I expect huge things out of. I do too. Then, so that's as we go down the road, we're getting it much more consistent. But boy, early on, you didn't know. Oh, I'll bet. Because as you're talking, like I say, we talked about the race horses that I would try and trying to find that mix. And, I remember when I was trying the cow-breds, just everything you're saying, I just remember going back to it as I was trying horses throughout my career on the head side. And then I remember guys would bring me a horse like, man, you need to try this horse. He's got a great mind, super fast-footed, but he would kind of a cow-bred horse. And I remember looking at him, he'd be like 14.3 and little low bone. And I'm like, man, I don't know if that's even going to hold up, with at that top level for us. And then they're like, well, just try him, man. He
he feels like he can really run. Well, I'd see a normal start, and when I would go, yeah, his feet were moving fast, but there's no gain. I was just it's like kind of like Fred Flintstone. The feet are just rolling, but I'm not getting nowhere. And so, and it was nothing against it, but he was exactly right. Good-minded, did everything you wanted him to do, but just he didn't have that reach that, well, like I say, and then after that, you're thinking about, okay, man, how cool would that horse mix with that other one that could run so hard? What would that feel like? Where that other one could run so hard, and then he'd almost go blank because he just was running, had no idea there was a cow in the arena, and so the other one was just so smart. Yeah, you're thinking about how you're talking about kind of mad science in them together. I remember thinking about that because I think I was trying a lot of those horses kind of with that same time period. I was like, man, if I could have that horse and that horse mixed together, wow, that would be a sweet horse. And that is kind of the breeding, isn't it? Where you're just looking to see how you can piece those together.
It really is, and it's just anytime you start doing those genetics, the way the Lord lays one out, you just don't know. I mean, it's one time it'll work. You can breed the horse back the exact same way the next year, and it not work. I mean, it's there's no doubt about it. It's been a hit and miss deal. One of the things that we found on the race side of the pedigree that worked better for us is actually horses that didn't have big race careers at all. And the reason they probably didn't was they didn't have the long enough stride. But when you take if you're used to, you take that regular cow-bred, cut-and-bred horse, rein-and-bred horse, and go rope on him, and then you take a slow horse off the racetrack. He is so much faster than that there's just no comparison. But that horse probably has a shorter stride and can do just what you were talking about. He can get gathered up, and he's got the quicker foot speed. I mean, that one smart Pistola, the gray mare that ran, had some success that now Clay Smith and the Richies have. I rode her. She's out of a stallion, a Fisher's Dash straight race bred stallion that Dr. Bartlett and I owned together. We bought him as a yearling, and he had 115 speed index going 300 yards. That's all further he could run, which is just what we wanted. Exactly what we wanted. Yeah. And I mean, that horse, I rode that mare before. She was always gorgeous, and I rode her just before Ren came to look at her, and wow, I'd never felt anything that could run that hard and yet was so gathered up all the time. I mean, and she's just a freak. But she that's rather than going and finding the really fast racehorses, you're really better off to go the other direction. And it's actually the ones that, and they're more reasonable. Of course, they're not the ones that we want in the racehorse industry. We can't sell a good race bred colt out of that mare because she doesn't have any, she didn't win anything. She hasn't produced anything. But for the rope horse side, she's exactly what you want. And then you start working through the mind, and there's just certain pedigrees that work better. Yeah. The Corona, and I like a Corona. I would rather have a Corona grandson. I think he's another one of those stallions that you need to almost dilute it a bit. I mean, Clay Smith's got that son of Corona Cartel that he's done so well with. I mean, and he's not the rule; he's the exception. But most of them, there's a lot of those horses, the Corona sons that really work well, cross it back on our cow-bred horses, and that's been something that. And there are certain pedigrees that just don't work.
Yeah. Now, how long have you been in the racehorse industry?
35 years.
You've been in there a long time.
Yeah, we've done it a long time, and we've still. Probably of the foals we have in Purcell, 2/3 of them would be race bred that we're raising, that we'll race or sell as in the race bred sales, and 1/3 of them are the rope horses.
Now, what's been going on there's been some drug testing going on in that industry. What's been going on with all that? Rick was telling me about it a little bit the other day that,
well, I think in the horse, from eternity, that in the horse racing industry, they're always looking for something to give them an edge, and so, but if you don't know what you're testing for, you can't test for it.
Because it wasn't testing, right?
Yeah,
Really.
and they've got in the last it's gone on forever. There's always been something. You can go down the line of the various things that over the years that they've that would give somebody a big edge until they figured out what it was, and then they had a test of art. Then they'd stop that. Well, then they'd come up with another one. That's just horse racing. Well, in the last 5 or 6 years, there's a veterinarian that's almost a chemist more than he is a veterinarian, and he grew up in the racing industry, and he has been able to go ahead and stay a step ahead of the authorities, and whether he tweaks the metabolic makeup of these drugs to where they don't fit exactly in the test, but they get the same results. And I mean, the clenbuterol, albuterol, those type of drugs that enhance the breathing ability and then bulk the horses up, steroids. And you take a good horse and then give him that stuff, you can't outrun him. And it's fairly obvious that it's the rumor is that this fella gets a percentage of the purse by. He actually he doesn't just sell the product. He gets a percentage of what they win. And I mean, they've literally stolen millions of dollars from.
Now, what is this drug and what does it enhance?
Well, I mean, the one I think they finally were able to get somebody to give them a sample of it. Maybe, I mean, the drug that they've been using last year, that they just caught it was in December, I guess, was a drug that's very similar to albuterol or clenbuterol. It does that. It was an old drug that the FDA tested in the 90s, and it wouldn't, and it had some side effects. And so they were very, very, very potent drug that would enhance their breathing ability and bulk them up, a steroid, anabolic steroid. And so it was never approved, and so it was never included in any of these tests. And so this vet found this stuff, and that's what they've been using. And so we thought they found that. Now it's called carbuterol. Yeah.
Motorol.
Called carbuterol. But anyway, and
it's a steroid.
Uh-huh. And we feel it's probably a cocktail. I mean, these horses, that are on this, for these few trainers, they'll walk in those starting gates and just stare down that track like the rest of the world is not there. It's probably a cocktail of that and like a study drug, a human drug that would be like a study drug that would focus those horses to where they don't see what's going on around. And these horses will run so hard that they literally have to pick them up and haul them off the racetrack. They're so exhausted. And I mean, they're very difficult to beat. And they're so, like I said, they're never bad in the gates because they don't even see that the rest of the world's going on. And so it's an
interesting drug then.
It's very frustrating. I mean, and eventually it's going to really, really hurt the industry. But what's
I've heard there's been some suspensions.
Well, there is. They've suspended 5 different big-time trainers, 2 of them the top 2 in the nation. We had a horse last year that won the Triple Crown in Ruidoso. Well, finally, he was on it, which most of us predicted he was. It was obvious that the one particular...
It's kind of like when you've seen in baseball there for a while, where these guys that have no necks just knocking the ball out of the county.
Yeah.
Not the stadium, but the county.
The particular trainer that had that horse that won the All-American last year, or won the Triple Crown, 2 years before that, he'd had 40-some starts and not one winner. And then he gets this stuff, gets the juice, we call it, and he has 28% winners. He goes.
Well, that's phenomenal when you think about the science of it when you're talking about a cocktail, because like we'll use a lot of Setavet, we'll use a lot of in the rope horse industry, we'll use a lot of guanabans and things like that, where it quiets the mind but it doesn't slow the feet down. So it helps a lot for these young horses not having a bad experience, take them to a jackpot, take them to certain places right there. So that, it just quiets their mind, but their feet are still there. Like when we've used Ace before and then almost put them to sleep. And then then when you go, it takes them that long to find their feet and you almost get outrun, so it almost puts them to sleep. And so anyway, you talk about a cocktail, but it's interesting to hear that you're the steroid, because when I think of steroids, I think of somebody juice that's just raging, right? Especially in football or, anything like that. But to think that this cocktail got them quiet-minded, but then when it's time to run, just being able to exhaust themselves. That's a wild how they're able to mix it together, I guess, then, huh?
Oh, and I mean, when you give it's a huge advantage. And when you take a good horse and then give him that stuff, they're just almost impossible to outrun. And they've we really were excited that they finally had, they've got these 5 guys, and I mean, three of them were obvious. There's no doubt these guys are running on something. There's just no way around it. And the one fella in particular had so little success. And then would all of a sudden out of the blue just blew the doors off when, would be 15 All-American trials in a day of trials. And he would win 5 or 6 races and qualify 2 or 3 horses out of 300 plus horses in the trials would qualify 3 or 4. I mean, it's just not possible. It just doesn't work that way. Well, I mean, this stuff is extremely potent, but what's disappointing is that they found the one drug and they just had another one sitting and they just continued right on. I mean, they call them paper trainers, but they put them in another trainer's name. And, because the other trainer was suspended, ruled off, whatever. Well, they just and it doesn't take any experience, or it doesn't take any actually ability as a horse trainer. This is what you got to give them, and they
the rocket. No one else can see that they shove up them right there. They just give them where they can boost their by everybody.
And the industry has done everything under the sun. We had a couple of years ago had a filly that qualified for the All-American Oaks, and this was going on then. And Johnny Trotter owns Riadosa, and Johnny bent over backwards. He literally hired full-time security for each qualifier. It would have been 40 horses that qualified for these various All-American races, the Futurity and Derby and Oaks, and Johnny hired full-time security to be at each one of these horses' stalls, and they still won. How they get it in. I mean, it's quite frustrating, but and eventually it's going to really hurt the industry. I mean, people are just going to get tired and say, we can't. This isn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
But anyway, hopefully they're doing, I mean, allegedly the FBI has gotten involved now and
so to a high court then.
So it's hopefully with that type of investigation, like, they had a big bust in the thoroughbred racing industry a year or two ago and that's what happened there. They got the FBI involved and they did wiretaps and they went, and that's.
I guess when there's that much money involved, it's going to create that higher of a court then, I guess.
Oh, I've heard figures, but millions and millions of dollars have been stolen basically by this crew.
So that's fascinating. So you also have the cattle operation, and is your cattle operation, is it here in Torrington?
Yes, it is.
So how long have you been in the cattle industry?
Well, I grew up in it. Part of our operation is my family's ranch, and we went on got involved in the cattle feeding for many years, and that's a high risk, but high reward if you live through it industry, and that's what we at one time had 3 feed yards, but the goal's always been to ranch, and we're blessed to have a wonderful ranch. That's what we do now.
Now, you and Rick, you guys became really good friends through the buying the cattle, through the sales and things.
Yeah, Rick was got involved through the Montfort family and became a cattle buyer. We were acquainted because of the team roping, but got to be good friends and have been, close friends for 40 years.
Now, what is going on with the cattle market? Just from maybe kind of the outside looking in, what is it that you feel like is creating such the high demand and the high price right now in the cattle industry?
I think a lot of it is that's the cattle cycle, and we've had lots of dry years. We've had Expense is extremely high to raise anything, a $75,000 pickup to go do anything with. And I mean, so, and then the age, labor situation is so difficult in any industry, and, but especially in agriculture. And so as these ranchers, get older and their kids go off, they're ranch raised kids that are very, very can think on their own and motivated. Well, then they go into other industries and go right to the top. And they, so there's the youth, there isn't the younger people coming into the business. And so as time goes along, these people try to simplify their ranching operations and have sold cows. So our cattle numbers are just our actual numbers are as low as they've been in 50 or 60 years. And then, and just demand. I mean,
now some of the land also being sold probably too to manage because don't have as much help.
Oh, absolutely.
Prices of everything. I'm sure property taxes probably hurt a lot to where you're downsizing. And then it seems like also too, the kids that get it watch mom and dad struggle so long. So then it's like, well, why would we want to do that? Just sell it and cash out.
Well,
so there's not as many ranches. Is that a little bit of everything?
Absolutely. And ranches that were raised to produce cattle that have gone raised are hunting ranches and the urban sprawl that continues to eat up agricultural land. And so, yeah, our cattle numbers are as low as they've been in 50, 60 years. And then the demand, the American public likes beef. They can say what they want. And then it's kind of like the perfect storm. In recent, there's a lot of feeder cattle that come from Mexico, and this is one of the things that's really hurt the roping cattle deal and made it so expensive. Is that they've here in the last 6 months they've had this screwworm that's caused problems in Mexico, and when we definitely don't want it to spread to the United States. So they've shut the border off. Well, that's a very substantial amount of feeder cattle that go into our feedlots, and then our roping cattle, and then the native Corriente cattle that are raised here in the United States. There's a lot of those cows. Those cows are so efficient they'll run on the side of a mountain that a goat would starve to death on, but because the beef market is so good, they're putting beef bulls on those Corriente cows so that we don't have anywhere near the supply of roping cattle being raised. And so it's definitely affected things. But
because I've heard that when you're talking about those Corrientes that are raised on the side of a mountain that can survive off anything, I've heard a lot of the similarities between the Mexican steers that are brought up, the M brands, and where they don't get overfed too early. So then their horns are actually able to outgrow their bodies. So when they come up here, they got a good set of horns, but their body's not too big. Or then you cross them with beef, and then they eat too much, and then after a while, their bodies outgrow their horns. Is that kind of a little bit similar with what goes on?
Well, with the cattle that are crossed with the beef, why they just don't have horns at all. Genetically, they don't grow horns, and then that's what we've roped on just for our personal use. We've started buying the native Corrientes, and they're just not as old. I mean, because there's even the poorest ranch in the United States is better than the Mexican type, the way those Mexican cattle are raised. So the thing they're really missing in order to make them work well for us up here is just 6 months is more age, and so we buy prospects and then give them another 6 months before we start roping them, and then they literally last as good as the M-branded Mexicans do. But the supply of either one is just super tight and literally can't get an M-branded Mexican across the border right now. I mean, so it's certainly down the road.
Well, it feels like it's really going to affect your producers.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking of some of the guys like Bobby Joe and the guys right there producing cattle for the PRCA. You're thinking about all the guys producing jackpots and all the team ropings along there. The price of cattle have gotten so high, I'm surprised the fees haven't gone up because of the fact that, everything is costing more. That's what I always talked about my clinics. Like, you better start getting used to roping head duckers, because for people to be able to get their money back, they're going to have to rope them cattle a lot longer to be able to replenish the herd because of how expensive they are.
Well, Cheyenne would be a great example right now. For the first time in history, they're roping the cattle that they team roped in the first the first go around, they sorted the slower end of the cattle off, and that's what they're going to ride roping the trip.
I thought I heard they were going to do both.
Yeah,
but to me, that's pretty efficient. To me, that's efficiency.
Yeah.
If I'm, because those steers were great in the team roping. They had bodies would look just good. They look so good, but like you had to score, you had to react to them. They're fresh. A lot of us like the fresh steers. So for me, we like the fact that because then it's a horse race, and then also who's handy enough that you can react to the steer and handle them. Oh, but then to be able to now turn around and use them again. I mean, I'm curious to see what the complaints would be as far as the steer ropers or the team ropers, but for the team ropers, we kind of enjoy the fact that there's a little bit of a cowboy event to it.
Well,
but the efficiency, I think, for Cheyenne to be able to do both and save some money, I'm curious to see how that kind of works.
Well, and Ty Yost is the guy that contracted that has it, and of course Ty's brilliant at that, as good as there is, and Ty was there himself sorting those cattle as they got done roping them the first time, and took the slower cattle off for the trip. I mean, the stronger end of those cattle that they roped in the team rope in that first round, you would have to be riding a rocket to get by in the tripping. I mean, they just wouldn't work. I mean, they're just so you had a contractor like Ty that's super sharp and knows what he's doing, is brilliant at what he's doing, and he was there himself sorting those cattle at the end of the arena to go ahead and make it work. I mean, and that's just. Ty's unbelievably successful and super sharp. Knows.
Yeah, what a good guy to have there in your corner as far as Cheyenne goes.
Brilliant guy. I mean, but he's making it work. But the rumor is that next year, that was probably the last year because of this difficulty getting these cattle. That very well could be the last year they ever have slack in Cheyenne. That Cheyenne switches back to like the winter rodeos where it's a ranking. Which is kind of sad. I mean, that's always been the cool thing about Cheyenne is that how many people that literally get their card just to go to Cheyenne.
Yep.
I mean, and they maybe aren't very competitive, but that's what they want to do.
Well, everyone has a chance because if you draw that good one and make a good run, you've got a chance.
Oh, absolutely.
So it makes a level playing field.
Yeah.
Especially with out here in Wyoming where there's so many cowboys between Wyoming, Nebraska, so a lot of guys at ranch that just rope a little bit, they've got a chance because they're handy enough. That's probably what they do. Half the time, half the week out there every day, so that's what makes it, I think, such a cool cowboy event, and that's such a good rodeo. But yeah, I'd hate for that to go that way, but I'm sure if they do, they'll have their reasons, I'm sure, for production. But yeah, that, I enjoyed watching the slack though on the team rope, and it was fun watching the guys that were handy, but it sounds like that screw worm is real down there.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it's a horrible. When they get it, if it gets it on a cut, is that right? And it's a fly, and it gets on a cut, and then what happens from there?
Well,
that's just what I've heard.
I mean, they're just they're a fly that literally eats flesh, and it will go ahead and dig on into the animal. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, when we would castrate an animal, there was a little spray that you'd put on that wound that was screwworm. I mean, that was back, it was a long time ago. And so it's been here before. They've eradicated it. It's not like it's never been in the United States, but it's very difficult to get rid of. And their USDA is doing everything possible to not have to do it again. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've heard stories about the billions of dollars that it would cost the cattle industry if it actually got here. So they're doing everything they can to stop it, but it certainly has made it
it's affecting the industry.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's just like I said, it's the perfect storm in the cattle business. When you shut that supply of feeder cattle off, the supply was already tight here. Inflation. I mean, all of a sudden the cattle prices are something that those of us in the business never in a million years dreamt that they would be. I mean, they have had some video cattle sales in the last couple of weeks, the bigger summer sales, and I think all three of those major sales have sold 400-pound steers for over $5 a pound, $2,000 a head for a 400-pound steer. So that is literally twice what 2 or 3 years ago those cattle would have brought.
Why is it that we rely on Mexico for M-branded steers? What is it about the breeding, and why is it that we can't do that here?
Well, just because of the just the environment. It's such a touch that they literally starve the cattle through, which in the United States we're just not geared to do. I mean, I don't think we have the our country's too good. We're too good at caretakers. We can't make that work.
It does feel like that when I get a fresh set of M brands in and I break them in. They just truly feel like they appreciate being in my house. They really do. They're so dumb in the best way. What I mean by dumb is they go straight. They go out. Half of them go out the strip and shoot right off the bat. I mean, almost like they're just such a sweet animal, where then we have some that come off of, some Corianis that come straight off the grass that are, crapping, 6 boards high, that are running through your fence, or they find the wrong gate the first time. It's like these suckers are so smart. They've learned how to get away from roping.
Well, I think
where the other ones are so appreciative.
From what I've understood, I've never been to Mexico to see how they're raised, but what I understand is they're raised by smaller farmers and ranchers, and they might have 10 or 20 cows, and they've been handled. I mean, they're around human beings. The places that we in the United States raise that Korean native, what we call native Coriandi, that's the toughest, sorriest ranches we have in the United States, which are the biggest ranches. So those cattle have never seen people. They're just the opposite. So they're wild. They're not like those gentle Coriandis that you're describing that are amazing. That it's just ours are the same genetics. They're just raised differently, and they haven't seen human beings.
It's interesting. What is it that I've heard that there's, now this is just speculation. I watch the news a little bit, but where Trump, as I heard it right, where they're trying to bring more to where the ranchers are going to benefit a little bit more in the fact of, I've heard we import so much beef that makes it hard for our ranchers here at home. Is that correct? To where, are we going to start taking care of our ranchers better here? Is there an administration now that is going to maybe start prioritizing our ranchers a little bit better, where they're not having to fight so much with, what they sell the beef for than what they sell them for at the supermarket? It just feels like, to me, man, I get really aggravated in the fact of, man, if we don't take care of the people making our food right here, where's it going to be in 10, 20, 30 years from now? Is there people taking a look at that and trying to make sure that we're taking care of our ranchers?
I mean, one of the things that's happened is, and there again, it's just the perfect storm right now in the cattle business, is that with President Trump and his all of the tariffs. Well, Brazil is one of the largest importers of beef into the United States, exporters of beef into the United States. Well, they got a 50% tariff. So all of a sudden that Brazilian beef just got astronomically high, and that tightens the beef supply up. And I don't know, I can't imagine that's a long-term thing. I think that they'll get that negotiated down, just a typical, Trump good businessman, start high and work towards the middle type situation. But in recent weeks, that's been another one of the reasons that the cattle market just continues to go up higher than those of us that have been in the cattle business our whole lives. Never in a million years dreamt that we would see the feeder cattle futures at $325 a pound for an 800-pound steer, or sell fat cattle for, I think the high this spring was $245 a pound. I mean, most of the fat cattle would bring $3,000 a head. So it's all numbers that we've never seen before, and that's also those of us that have been in the cattle business for any length of time know that what goes up must come down.
That's what we always look at too, is like, all right, everything's great right now for them, but how is this going to stay?
Oh, it's going to be bloody murder at some point. Yeah. There's going to be, the old saying that they lose the truck that they rode in on. In the feedlot business, there's coming a time when they'll lose the truck that they rode in on. There's at the level these cattle are right now, you can see cattle lose $1,000 a head if the wheels came off. Yeah. And it's normally I think they call it a black swan event. It's not.
Why is it so volatile? Why is the market so volatile?
I just think that's just the cattle business. There's so much of the business is consolidated on the packing side. There's only 3 or 4 major packers, and so you don't have much competition anymore. And so when if they get just a few too many, they have such leverage that, boy, the market just falls like a rock.
Now, have I seen it where certain ranchers have started packing their own?
Oh yeah,
and selling it on their own. Is that kind of maybe a little bit of the future where some of these ranchers can kind of almost dictate a little bit of their future by having a little bit more control?
Yeah, I mean, and there's for the first time in many years they're building packing houses. I mean, they've opened a packing house at North Platte, Nebraska now that's owned by ranchers and producers, friends of mine that are involved in that deal, and I'm getting that off the ground. There's some other friends, Casey Cameron and Monty Cluck, that are big proponents of starting a plant and rebuilding a new plant in Amarillo that will be the most environmentally friendly plant in the world, and I mean kill 2,500, 3,000 cattle a day. Those things happening will add competition, and that plant in Amarillo is 100% producer owned. And then you've also got some of the bigger ranchers, the Riverbend out in Idaho, that's that they're producing their own beef and marketing that clear through the 44 farms. That deal is an enormous program that those cattle that beef goes through Walmart. But I mean, they're really promoting it, and they're trying to make it a branded beef type situation. So yeah, those things will help long term. I mean, that's new. I mean, it's hard that they've been trying to do that for a long time, and it hasn't been successful. But it looks like this time maybe it is.
I hope so. Yeah. Now, have you guys done that at all?
No, we're pretty well just totally on the generic side of the business. I mean, our feeder cattle, go to we basically buy light calves. We run some cows. Probably 20% of our ranch we run cows and calves, but 80% of it we buy light calves in the fall and feed them through in the winter in what we call a grow yard, where we just hold them back to 2 pounds a day, and then they go to our ranches in the spring weighing 7.5, and they'll come off in the fall weighing from 9.5 to 1,000, and go to a feed yard. They'll feed them in that feed yard for 130, 40, 50 days. They'll weigh 1,500 pounds and then go to the plant.
They'll gain about 500 pounds in that last spot then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they will. But that's kind of our program and we buy the light calves. They're the young calves off the ranches here in Wyoming and northern Colorado. That's what they are. They're just the younger born calves.
Yeah.
Good quality animals that, because they are younger, it takes a little more management to keep them alive when you wean them. But that's kind of our deal.
So one of the things Jackie and I do, because we're big supporters of the ranchers, that's what we feel like, that, whatever we can do to support that. So we buy all our beef straight from ranchers. I think Jackie's been good friends with the people at Five Marys and the Scott Ranch. And so we'll just order online, and it usually shows up, and we try to make sure we're also there too, because we don't want to sit there at the front gate when it gets hot. But yeah, that's where we enjoy, because man, the beef is good, it's fresh, and like I say, I feel like then that way we're 100% supporting the ranchers, and so that's just the little things we try to do to try to support our industry. But I was curious if that was starting to become something that the ranchers are able to take kind of control of their own destiny on.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it's been around for years. They've tried it, and it was just those packers. That's such a huge money deal, and they're so powerful. And I mean, they could kind of, you might say, snuff out a smaller. It takes
a little bit of a monopoly.
It takes deep pockets to compete with. Yeah, and but like the 44 farms, I guess, mentioned the Riverbend deal in Idaho. I'm starting to see a lot of ads for their beef, and they promoting how they raise them with no antibiotics, no hormones, and that's definitely more expensive to raise them that way. I mean, you have a lot more expense in them if you can't. The growth hormones change our cost of gains drastically. And so that's, I mean, that's a great thing with a health conscious American that's, he's undoubtedly they're willing to spend more, and it is drastically more expensive.
Yeah, I mean, it's way more feed, correct?
Yeah. And then just the way rather than to ship that package to you directly, rather than shipping semi-loads of beef. I mean, it just the operating expenses are drastically higher. So that I actually just out of curiosity just looked at their price list on the some of that Riverbend beef, and there's another deal, a larger packing house out of the Northwest that they call it Snake River Farms, and that's a kind of a crossbred between the Japanese type Wagyu beef and American, and it's phenomenally good. I mean, it's really good, but it would almost be double what you could go to Walmart and buy a choice steak for. So I mean, it's certainly more expensive, but it undoubtedly probably more consistent as far as the quality, and then from the health conscious, there's the people that are worried about that,
because that's the one thing I've noticed when we go to the meat market or get something straight from the ranch. Like the meat quality does look a lot different, than when I get, it's like say our HEB there in town. Just the color of it looks different, the taste is different. Then we've heard so much too, where it says made in the USA, and it may be from Brazil or somewhere else, but they just packaged it here and then stamped the USA on it. So there's been a lot of controversy, I guess, a little bit on like, what are we buying?
The corporate cattle feeding industry is so tightly tied into the packing houses that they have so much lobbying power that at one time we had a origin labeling through in the United States to where where it came from, no different than a T-shirt that was made in in China. It has made in China. Why wouldn't that be something that we should be able to do with our food? Well, because of the power of those corporate cattle feeders and then their partners, and a lot of the corporate cattle feeders have some joint ownership with those packing houses. I mean, they're tied together, and they so they have so much power that they literally have been able to go ahead and run over the mom and pop rancher and get that stuff taken out. I mean, literally, there was a law that did go ahead and have that beef labeled. Well, it is no longer. The corporate cattle feeders stood with the packing houses to get it taken out, and so it's that's just life, I guess.
Yeah, it is. You see it a lot in businesses. The mom and pops there at the local places there in near small towns, or Amazon's gonna take over those places where they're not there as much. So it is kind of a part of the evolution, unfortunately, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Sure is.
What is your foresight on where you see the cattle industry go and where you see the rope and steers go?
Well, I think that there's the old saying, there's nothing like high prices to cure high prices, and I mean with the last sale they had in Hamilton, I mean they quoted the roping ready steers at either side of $2,000 a head, and literally, I mean we've bought our prospects in Hamilton for several years, and they and what they call a roping ready steer is 45 days from being ready to rope. I mean,
potentials.
Yeah, I mean they have big enough horns, but to get them healthy and get them grown up and kind of get them through the shock of going through the sale barn, they're not ready to rope right away. You're not just going to go, well, it would be no different than a typical Coriani that's crossed across the Mexican border. You don't rope them the next day either.
Yeah.
And so but I mean, at that level, I think there'll be more people go back to raising the straight Corianis. They'll put Coriani bulls back on those Coriani cows rather than the beef bulls. And so, the supply should get better. I mean, how many people are starting to talk about roping muleys, but the muleys cost a lot of money too. I mean, that isn't a really cheap way to go either. Yeah. So yeah, I think we all, and you've touched on this several times, we are going to have to get used to roping cattle longer, and we're going to have to learn how to rope the ones that duck their head, and they're going to be heavier, and that's just, we're going to have to use them longer to get them cheapened down.
Mm-hmm. What about the cattle market? What do you feel like you foresee with where everything is now? How long is this sustainable, you feel like? Because we are getting rain in a lot of places. I will say that.
I think that they've said that the herd, the rebuilding of the herd which is kind of the typical 10-year cattle cycle, isn't starting. And I think that due to the labor costs, due to what these cattle are animal. It probably isn't the herd isn't as rebuilding as fast as it could. And I've actually heard heard from some of the people in the packing industry and one thing or another that they don't anticipate the herd will ever get as big as it was, just with economic situations and the labor situation. And so they're right now, the average slaughter weight of our cattle is probably 100 pounds, maybe 150 pounds heavier right now than it would have been 2 years ago. And the reason for that is they're trying to take fewer animals and raise the same amount of red meat. So we're feeding our cattle much longer than we ever have, and making them much bigger. And so that's what normally really wrecks us, in my experience over the years in the cattle business, is a black swan event, a COVID or an economic downturn. That's what, when we have these kind of markets, that's what really kicks the chair out from under you, and where it's and then that's just kind of the cattle business that you have to learn how to accept. Yeah, you have to you want to have some cash reserves because you're going to need them. Yeah. Well, man, I sure appreciate the conversation. I learned so much, and sure appreciate what you guys have done for the rope horse industry, and seeing the success you guys are having. I love watching the good horses. It's so good now to see, like I've talked about that for so long, on being on the header side, as people are actually breeding for them. And I love the fact that we're starting to see that now in our industry, and we appreciate you guys breeding them and producing some phenomenal athletes in the team roping industry. Well, thank you, Charlie. I mean, I've enjoyed the conversation, but I also was fortunate to be able to spend the last 2 days at one of your schools, and just thank you for all you do for us. I mean, that is you've put on a fantastic school, and I learned a lot. I've been to lots of schools over the years and continue to learn, but I mean, it was you and Trey just do a phenomenal job with your schools, and we really appreciate what you guys do. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, that's one of the things that it's been fun, and the fact of, when it comes down to kind of being a clinician, I would say one of the things that probably helped was the fact of how many times I've had to tear my roping down and build it back up, because of the evolution of team roping. I started off with the Jake and Clay, Matt Tyler, Charles Pogue era, and then Speedy showed up. And then shortly after that, then it produces your Caleb Driggers and your Dustin Esquizas and your Clay Smiths. And, now we're seeing where it's at now. But, there's such a frustrating time with when, okay, things change and that's not working. I'm going to have to evolve. I'm going to have to figure out how to tear this down and put it back together. So just being able to do that with the roping, and then figuring out how to do that. Now can I, if I've taught myself how to do that, now can I take in enough students now to be able to break down the rope from when you uncoil it to how to get it swing to how to get that thing around the horns. But then one of the things that I think has helped so much with the industry as well is the futurities. Now there's finally, 4 maneuvers that people are judging people on how to, between how good these horses score, how hard they horses run, but they can still rate. Then you have the third maneuver of the set and the handle, and then the fourth is the faith. And so now we're seeing an abundance amount of trainers now starting to apply that into their training. And so just the dabbling with the futurities a little bit that I do, getting to go rope with those top trainers, getting to go watch what they're doing, getting to go to the futurities and watch it kind of play out, has literally helped me so much with my left hand and feet. Because that is, to me, what is nice, and what I'm trying to do is be able to now, it's important to catch that steer, but there's so much skipped on the ability to train your left hand and feet. That's a technique. That's something that's learned. That's something that sets up your start. That sets up your, how well you rate in the position you're at. That gives you an easy throw. Then after that, now once we get hooked on, now we got to make that steer healable. That's all the left hand and feet. And so that's what's been, I think, so much fun and well needed for the futurity industry is showing people now that there's a pretty good blueprint on how these horses should work. And now we've got to be able to show, I think, certain people too, is like, it doesn't have to always be about catching. Now, how do we train the left hand and feet? What are the techniques we can do to learn to where now once we've roped, we can get the feel of how
to be able to put that horse moving around your foot, being able to get the face right, all those little things that I spent so long being in the horse's way. And one of the things that I remembered when Jackie said one time at one of her clinics, somebody was wanting to buy her horse because their daughters couldn't, the horse kept breaking wide to the calf. And so, Jackie says, the girl needs to learn how to break the horse to the pin. So she needs to learn how to ride that horse to the pin. Well, yeah, that horse is not doing it, so we need to sell it and buy another one. She goes, well, if you don't teach your daughter how to ride that horse to the pin, then the one I sell you is going to do the same thing that the one you're trying to sell. So that's what's been fun about, the clinics is like, all right, if you've bought a really high-powered horse from the flag ranch, that's a very nice horse. We need to show you the correct way to ride it so it stays working well. Or the fact that I really like too with some of the people that come to the clinics is their horse may not know how to do that. So now how do you show the horse how to break to the correct spot, right in the correct position, being able to get hooked up to the steer, being able to learn the proper distance or the proper angles to get to the steer. So then that way now you're adding value. So now your horse may not have done that, but you'd get consistent with it. And that's what's fun about being able to help so many people is then they start being able to see that their horse can actually do that. That is, their left hand and feet weren't showing them the right spots. And that's what, for me, as a clinician, that's what I enjoyed is getting to watch, especially at the end where after 2 days, you see so much improvement and watching just the difference in the horses. That's what I love because there can't be much more things frustrating for a horse than somebody kicking and pulling on them, and then expecting to still work. And that's what I think the futurities is my hope for them is where they do such a good job of showing people the correct way to ride the horse. And so then that way I'm hoping that there's going to be less frustration for the horse and the rider so they can enjoy what we all love to do for a good pastime, which is team roping.
Well, I mean, we've all seen how the team roping, how could it get faster? How could we do this any best? And I mean, I think a lot of this is these young people coming up that have clinicians like you that teach them how to do it the right way, and they never have any bad habits, and they don't, and we're they're homeschooled, and all they do is rope, and they have no fear, and I mean, it's so fun to watch those kids. I have no interest in roping against them, but I mean,
exactly.
I used to hear people that talk about it in Arizona about, well, we just won't go to a roping he doesn't have some sort of an age deal in it. We're not going to rope against those kids. And I thought, oh, for heaven's sakes, what's your problem? Well, I had a young man this winter in Arizona that wanted me to go to one of those open jackpots with him. And I said, all your buddies are going to be there and you guys are going to be partnered up. And I said, I'll just send you with the money and you guys just divide it up how you think sounds fair. I mean, there's no reason for me to go ahead and saddle my horse. I'll just send you the money. And those kids it's just amazing. They're just fearless and it's so fun to watch go. And this year, the couple, 2 or 3 young teams that are traveling, going down the road, unbelievable how competitive those kids are with, and just think after they get a little experience and learn the ropes, how can every year we think, how can it get faster? How could they do it any better? And they continue to improve.
They continue to do it. Yep.
I mean, it's been fun. Sure. But I think a lot of that is just the fact they have the foundation with people like you. They don't have any bad habits.
Well, I appreciate that.
But
what are ways where people can look on your websites and things like that and look at what you guys have, horse wise and horse flesh wise?
Well, we have just a flag ranch is our website, and as we get ready to get close to the sales, I mean, we basically have two sales a year. One is we put a lot of our horses in the either Rio Dos or Heritage Place sales, mainly the Heritage Place.
Now, is that your race horses?
That's the race horses, and then our 2-year-olds, pretty well all of our 2-year-olds anymore. We don't sell many at home just because we want to be fair to everybody. We don't want to sell the best ones at home, and so we want everybody to have a shot at those. And so we sell all of our 2-year-old rope horse prospects in January through the Triangle sale.
Okay. And where is that located?
In Oklahoma City.
So
yeah. And I mean, that's a Western Bloodstock owned company now, and they do. Jeremy does a fantastic job of marketing those horses.
Is that Jeremy Barwitz?
Jeremy Barwitz.
Heard such good things about that guy.
He's a brilliant young man that does a wonderful job marketing horses of all different kinds. He just continues to expand into new things. involved in that gold buckle futurities, and which, I mean, obviously is taking things, as far as taking the futurity world by storm.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, yeah, he really gets it. I mean, for a guy that was a cutting horse trainer, he's broadened his horizons.
Yeah. And I feel like we're behind where they're at as far as the rope horse industry. So it's good to have somebody, I think, come into our industry a little bit that's been through the curves and learning curves and the evolution of where they're at. I think it'd be good to get that knowledge in ours, where ours is really starting to evolve. So he sounds like he's done a good job there. It'd be good to have on our team as we evolve in this industry as well.
Yeah, he turns that particular sale, he's kind of turned over to Alan Chappell, and Alan does, Alan's team roper and cutter and been involved all different things and a horse trader and understands marketing. And so anyway, Alan pretty well runs the triangle sales and does an excellent job. And so,
so for everyone looking for that next colt, be heading for the triangle sale. And you said January?
Yeah, it's mid-January.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, man, I appreciate your time. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed getting to know you, and I enjoyed getting to the history of kind of how you've bred these horses and the science behind it. And I also love hearing where everyone's at in the cattle market. It's something that's, in my opinion, a light needs to be shined more, I feel like, on our ranchers to make sure that we're not losing them. That's one of the things that I feel like is I'm hoping this administration really shines the light and showcases these guys, because if we lose that, man, I don't know what I'd do without having a steak. Me and Corey, that's one of the things we celebrate, man. We find at the steakhouse every time we can. So that's the last thing we need is to have that going south. So I appreciate all your take on it and your input, and I enjoyed the conversation.
I enjoyed it. Thanks, Charlie.
Good luck with your team roping. I expect to be hearing about a lot of money. Yeah, especially when you guys go down there to Arizona.
Yeah. Well,
is there as many jackpots up here this summer?
No, there are definitely not as many jackpots.
So we're just going to be getting ready for Arizona then. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. If you've been wanting to get into team roping or improve your skills as a beginner header, now's your chance. Join us for the NRS Beginner Headers Only Clinic at the NRS Arena in Decatur, Texas, October 3rd through the 5th. This clinic is designed just for the beginner headers up to a number 3, focusing on roping the horns, solid horsemanship, and the fundamentals you need to build confidence and stay safe while having a great time. Head over to charlycrawford.training or check the podcast description to get the link to enroll. We'll see you in Decatur.